friends, welcome to this module on I18N. What is I18N? Oh, I18N stands for internationalization. We have this short form I18N for internationalization because there are 18 letters between I and N. Okay. Similarly, we have another terminology called I18N. What is that? Localization. What are all these things about? What is internationalization about? Oh, internationalization is about developing software which can change its behavior or it adapts its behavior according to the preference of the user. The user's preferences in terms of language and country. Okay, mainly languages, right. So, we have different people coming with different languages, and as so if you are reading some data, maybe you show your data whatever, fine, maybe your screens, you have your buttons and so many, your user interface. In the user interface, you have so many things which are being displayed, and if that could be displayed in the language which is convenient to the user, fine, whichever is the preference of the user, that would be very nice to the user, and this change should not require a change in the software. Okay. It shouldn't require require many efforts in order to start supporting a particular language. Internationalization is mainly about how do we create software, okay, which is sensitive to the locale. Yes, I am using a term called locale. Locale stands for the language and country settings. It is actually, we have a class called locale in java.util package. We got a class called locale. Okay. The object of locale encapsulates information related to the language and country settings, his preferences basically. So, a user's preference about language, country and cultural things, they can be represented in terms of a locale object, fine. So, we got a class called locale. So, let us first look at that locale class and try to understand a little bit about the locale class, and then we will move on to look at the class called resource bundle, fine. And there are different types of resource bundle. There are ways we can, how do we create a application which is sensitive to locale quite easily. The idea here would be to develop software where we can support a few number of different locales, fine. It decides that yes, you can give preference the user, if the user has certain preference, then according to the user's preference it can make changes in its behavior. Fine. It uses a different sets of texts and maybe different other kinds of objects which are sensitive to the locale, fine. And then and we will also see that how simple it would be to add support for new locales, fine. And that is where the localization comes in. Localization is about just building that support for another locale. Okay. So, let us see this. So, let us start by understanding the class called locale. So, what is a locale class? A locale class is just representation of language and country setting. What is there in the locale? The locale class has a constructor which can take as parameter the language, the country, and even in spite of the language and country, if you need some more variant, you can have add your own variant also. So, you got 3 different constructors, fine. You got a constructor where you can give only the language or maybe language and country both, because sometimes you will say okay, language is English and then with English language in a different country there are changes, fine. For example, if you just look at the spelling for color, okay, if it is English in UK, that is a different spelling as compared to English in US. So, there are so many places where this changes are there in within the same language. For different country the things are different, fine. So, we have this language, country, and then maybe even if in spite of the language in country, if you need some more variants, some more parameter, another parameter for variation, fine, you can use a variant also. So, we got 3 components within our locale object. So, locale object has 3 components: language, country and variant. Again the language and country, how do I specify my language? So, for languages and countries we got some ISO standards. So, there is a 2-letter ISO code for languages, there is another 2-letter ISO code for regions, fine. So, those are being used here, those are understood here by the constructor of our locale class, fine. So, that is one way. So, once you create a locale class is immutable, fine, you do not change the locale settings. Now, another thing, if you have observed your machine, right, your machines have a locale setting also, right, you have your regional settings within your machines, fine. Same way, our Java virtual machine also has its own locale setting. So, when you start your JVM has something called a default locale. That is the initial, that is the default for our JVM. So, we have this class called locale and it has a static method called get default, which can give you the default locale, and you got a setter method also, another static method called set locale, by which you can set what should be the default for your for this JVM session, fine. And so, that is one thing. So, we have this locale class, and okay, there are many interesting methods here even in the locale class. For example, you have method, okay, so you use only the codes, those ISO codes to create your object of locale. So, having a locale object, I want to know what is the name of the country. This locale object has a country code, I created using a country code, fine. I said okay, let me create a locale. Let us say I have locale L1 equals new locale and I use EN comma US. So, that is English in US, okay, fine. And then I say let me create another locale object L2 equals new locale, and I create this locale by saying I want to use Gujarati, sorry, instead of Gujarati let us use Hindi. I say Hindi and India, fine, country is IN, India. So, HI and IN, that is the parameter we use for creating the object of L2. And now, let us say we say then we have an interesting method here called get display country, get display language. These are some interesting methods we have. So, if I say get display country on a locale object, it is supposed to give me the name of the country, the full name of the country. And if I say get display language, it is going to give me the name of the language. So, here in this case, if I say if I use if I say L1 dot get display country, fine, I have this method where I do not pass any parameters, L1 dot get display country. What is the expected thing? Oh, what will be the output? Oh, it depends on the user's preference. Here it would depend on the default locale setting. Okay. So, normally our default locale would have the language of English, and therefore, the output here will say okay, L1 dot get display language would give me English, because this locale L1 has the language called EN, it was created with EN. But if I say L1 dot get display country, fine, that was get display language, fine. Now, we have get display country, and for and if I do not pass any parameters, assuming that the default has English, fine, default has language English, it should be giving me the output as United States of America. Okay, that is the output you will get. But oh, what if the locale was, the default locale was different? Or another option which we have here is, when I use the get display country or get display language method on a locale object, I have an option of saying I want this, but my preference, I would like to see this according to a given locale. So, I can pass L2, we created another L2 object which was for Hindi in US. So, if I use if I pass this as a parameter to the method. So, if I say L1 dot get display country and I pass L2 as a parameter, in that case what is the output you expect? No, it is not going to give you the output of United States of America, it is going to say Sanyukta Rajya America, because this is in Hindi, fine. So, same language, same L1 object, but the country I am asking for country, yes, the output has to change according to the locale. Internationalization exactly is about this only. See, we can see this, that our locale class itself is sensitive to locale. Fine. If your default locale was different, the output in the first place would also have been different. Fine. So, internationalization, this is an example where yes, you do not have to make any changes, preference changes and the output changes. Fine. It is adapting to the user's preference. Fine. Same way, if I had said L1 dot get display language, L2 it would have, it will not say English, it would say Angrezi. Okay, fine, and that too according to the script which is used by the, so it would be in Devanagari script, fine, because that is what Hindi is normally using. Okay, so fine, so this is one example, fine. So that is one class called locale. Now, how do we develop, how do we get such things? Okay, fine. So if you want to, in your application, if you would like to have, you would like to have your application to be also locale sensitive, fine. In that case, what is required? Let us see what is required. We have one very interesting class called resource bundle. Okay. The steps here would be, what you need to do is in your application identify all those kinds of objects which need to be changing according to the locale. There will be so many things which may not, which are not dependent on locale, but we have certain things which would change according to the locale, which require to be changed according to the locale. So, if you have any such objects, identify all such things. Okay, fine. And maybe what you will be doing is you will be developing it for one particular locale as a default. Locale, what I mean here, that you would identify some locale of yours which your software understands as the default. It is not going to understand the default of the system where it is going to run. There is some default which would be decided by the developer. That as a developer you have decided that my default support is for so and so locale. Fine. And what you do is identify the elements, okay, all such elements, fine. Maybe most of it may be text, fine, but even non-textual things can also be there, fine. And then what we have here is we have to use a class called resource bundle. Let us see this, let us first explore this class called resource bundle. Okay, object of resource bundle is nothing but it is having object of resource bundle is having all the various objects for a particular locale only. So, one single locale, all such locale sensitive objects, fine, they are identified and managed in a resource bundle. So, in the resource bundle each such object is given some kind of an identity, fine. So, there has to be some kind of a unique identification name given to all such objects. So, we have some kind of a name given to them, and then against the name we have an object which is for a particular. So, one resource bundle has says, okay, you have identified 5 different things, let us say. If you have 5 different elements, each of those 5 elements will have some kind of a name, okay, and these against these names we got our objects. Now, this resource bundle is to manage things in this manner. So, for managing this, yes, the resource bundle, the base class resource bundle is actually a abstract class. Resource bundles, another point about resource bundle is resource bundles, it is not one resource bundle you will have, fine. You will have a family of resource bundles, fine. We identified a set of properties, we identified a set of elements, we said okay, we have 5 elements. Now, it is that this entire family of resource bundle, what is common to them? Oh, they all have the same set of 5 objects, but each bundle is created for a different locale, okay. And then the name of those bundles, the names of the bundles is common. We have something called a base name. We have the base name and then it would have a suffix to indicate what kind of locale that bundle is for. Okay. So, say for example, you have identified maybe most of it may be you have identified various labels which you use, and for all the various labels you want to create your resource bundle. So, maybe you call it as label bundle. So, label bundle may be the name of it may be a base name, fine. This base name and then underscore, and then okay, if I am developing something for English, I will say base name label bundle underscore en. Okay. I might have something which is more specific. I might have label bundle underscore en underscore us, or label bundle underscore hi, or label bundle underscore hi underscore in, label bundle underscore gu if you want in Gujarati. So, you may have label bundle for Gujarati also, fine. So, that way label bundle underscore. So, it is nothing but base name, label bundle here is a base name. Now, one requirement which you always will have is, you have to, as a developer, you will have decided what is going to be your default, you will be supporting which locale should be your default locale for this software. Okay. And therefore, what you have is, you have one particular resource bundle which is only with base name and no suffix. That is a must. You must have, whenever you develop any particular resource bundle, you should have a family of resource bundle, one resource bundle which uses only the base name. So, you have label bundle, that particular class may also be there, but all these classes have to be subclasses of the resource bundle class. Resource bundle is an abstract class, and how do we indicate those the keys which are there? So, for that, this abstract class resource bundle has two abstract methods which a developer needs to override and then indicate, yes, what are the keys and how the mapping is done, for which key what is the corresponding object we have. So, we have two methods here, two abstract methods. One method is get keys, and that returns an enumeration of string. Get keys would return a enumeration of string, and then we have the so that is indicating, okay, what are all different IDs we are having. Okay. Keys are nothing but the IDs, the different objects which we have identified. And then we have the other method which is for getting given a particular key, I want to get the object. So, yeah, we have a non-abstract method called get object that is normally going to be used, but we have a abstract method which needs to be overridden. We have a protected abstract method called handle get object. Fine. Handle get object requires a parameter which is your ID, your key. Given a key, it should be returning an object. Now, this is handle get object, and we have a public method which is implemented, it is a non-abstract method. We have a method called get object. We have, because most of the time we get strings, okay, we have a convenient method called get string also on similar lines. So, we have get object, parameter is a key, string, that is a string, type is string, but that is a key, and it should return object, return type is object. We have get string, parameter is again a string, the key, and it should return back to us the string as a string. It does the casting for us. Fine, it does the casting and gives us a string. And same way, another very common things could be, instead of just a single string, it might be a string array. So, we got these three equivalent methods, only difference is there is a casting being done. So, we have get object with no casting, get string, and a get string array, where the things are cast to a string or a string array. Fine. So, these are the methods to extract for a given ID, for a given key, I should be able to extract and get the object. So, from the bundle. Fine. So, one thing is about, yes, we have the resource bundle having such methods called, but one thing we need to override is, we need to override those two methods. It is those two methods which are used for indicating what are the keys plus a mapping for a given key, what is the given object. Now, you can see this handle get object is actually an abstract method, and we do have another method called get object. What is the difference between them? Again, fine, to understand the difference, these resource bundles do have a parent child relationship. Fine. For example, if I talk of, see this the parent child relationship exists within a family. Fine. It is going to be within the family of resource bundle. For example, you have label bundle being a parent for label bundle underscore en, and label bundle underscore en is the parent for label bundle underscore en underscore us. Fine. So, if you so this is the parent child relationship. Now, the idea here is when someone says handle get object, the handle get object needs to implement, fine, what is not available, what is different from its parent. So, if your default has something and which is exactly what you want, you do not need to handle such a key. The keys to be handled are the ones which differ from, which has a different value from the parent. So, that is where the difference between get object and the handle get object is. So, the application, the main application which is using the resource bundle, the user of the resource bundle, he will be using the get object method, and the developer of the resource bundle, he has to override the handle get object method. Fine. Anyway, it is abstract, it needs to be overridden. So, one option, yes, you develop your family of resource bundle by implementing the two method, get keys and handle get object, but that may be a little tough. Okay. We have a simpler one. We have a subclass of the resource bundle called, we have this subclass called the list resource bundle. In the list resource bundle, again, no, we do not have two abstract methods, they have just reduced it to one, and that to a simple one. We have the method called get contents. The get contents, where the return type is two-dimensional object array. The two-dimensional object array is supposed to be each element in this two-dimensional array is nothing but having another array of object. The inner array will be string, the first element should be a string which is nothing but your ID or the key, and the second element is your object which is required against that key. Fine. So, you can have your resource bundle objects created one resource bundle per locale. Fine. Now, coming to, okay, we can develop all this, but then at the end how is it going to be used? Fine. How is it making our task easy? Okay. So, how to use this? The usage would be something like this. The application which needs to use a resource bundle, oh, how does he use it? He uses, because in resource bundle, we ultimately see there will be a task of, okay, the user has a preference of a particular locale, I need to pick up the particular resource bundle for him, and that task is made simpler by a static method available in the resource bundle class. In the resource bundle class, there is a static method called get bundle, which can take as parameter a string which is nothing but the name of the base name. Give a base name, and you can, as a second parameter, you can pass a locale object, or give me the resource bundle for this base name and which fits this particular locale. Or now, whatever locale you pass as parameter, or it can so happen that for that locale you did not have a locale, you did not have a resource bundle, but then what should it do? Oh, what is a good thing about the get bundle method is, it does not straight away say, oh, I do not have this one, and therefore, let me use the default. Fine. One is, it can fall back to the default, whatever, because we always will have a default which is nothing but the default locale which the application wants to support. Fine. There has to be one default locale which the application has decided, for which there is, recollect, there is always one resource bundle with the base name alone. Okay. So, that class would be used. Fine. No, it is not going straight away for that. Instead, it has a mechanism by which it will try to see if it can fit. Fine. For example, if the locale which you are passing as parameter says, I want a resource bundle for this label bundle, and I am looking for English in maybe in Canada. Fine. So, English in Canada, okay, you are looking for English in Canada. Now, I do not have a resource bundle for English in Canada. So, okay, in that case, the get bundle method would automatically try to fall back by just discarding only the last element. So, it will say, okay, do I have a resource bundle for label bundle in English? Okay, oh, I do have. Okay, in that case, it will automatically pick this up and use it. It will not go to the default straight away. Fine. So, that is one idea here. Fine. So, there is this use of get bundle, fine, will be a much better thing. Fine. It automatically takes care of locating the best bundle for you. Fine. There is a good there is a logic how it actually locates the tries to fit the best one, and of course, if it still does not fit anywhere, it would then ultimately fall back to the default from the application. Fine. So, the default resource bundle is what it will fall back to. Okay. And anyway, this resource bundle, again in the resource bundle you also have this method called get locale. So, when you get a resource bundle object, you can also verify whether this resource bundle is exactly what I had wanted and how much different it is from what you had asked for. Okay. So, all that can always be done. We have the get locale method here in the resource bundle class. Fine. So, that way you could actually be using resource bundles, fine, and doing this job of creating different resource bundle. See, the pluggability here is that fine, how it is extensible to give, in order to try to give support for newer locales. Fine. You just have to create a new resource bundle. For in case of labels, you could say label bundle underscore, and maybe I did not have support for French. Okay, I will say label bundle underscore fr. I now have information about everything for these keys in French, and therefore I would say okay, label bundle underscore fr, and I create a resource bundle for that. Fine. So, that way I can just keep on adding more and more resource bundles. Fine. So, that is one aspect. Fine. So, creating resource bundles, that would be one of the steps. Okay. Once you have the resource bundle, we start using it in an application. To start using it in an application, first method, what the application does? Okay. Application would do resource bundle, some variable name equals resource bundle dot get bundle, get the fine, and you pass the locale, the family name and the locale as a parameter, get the best one. And then wherever required, we do not hard code anything. We do not, wherever there is a case locale sensitive thing, right, locale sensitive things to be used, we do not hard code them. We rather use always get it from the resource bundle. First get the best resource bundle and then fetch your things from the resource bundle by using the get bundle method. Now, we had seen two options. One option was using resource bundle by implementing the two methods, like you extend directly from the resource bundle class. Other option was to override the get contents method of list resource bundle. Or there is a third class also, there is one more class called property resource bundle. The property resource bundle is the one which is more commonly used for text, where the types of resources which are needed are text. Yes, there we may be using the property resource bundle. Oh, and there too we do not need to even write a class at all. Even without writing any class, we can manage this. What we need to do is, like we were developing the classes for the base name, the family name, fine, whatever we have a base name dot, and we need to develop a class, fine, define those classes and develop them. Okay. Instead of having those classes, what you would do is, you will say okay, I have the base name. So, the default one I will say base name dot properties, we create the dot properties file. We just need to create the properties file, and while deploying them, deploy them at the place where you have your classes, the place where your classes would can be loaded from. So, we keep them along with our class files, fine, they are just like the class files. And when we say resource bundle dot get bundle, this method would first see if it can find a class file. If it can locate the class for your appropriate class according to the base name and the locale specified, fine, it will try to look for the class file. It does not find a class file. Okay, let me see if there is a properties file. If it locates a properties file, it is able to create a property resource bundle object from that and then use it and give it to you. So, your properties file looks like, okay, you have your keys equal to, and what is the text value for it, fine. So, that way you have your you can create your properties files, fine. So, instead of organizing your resource bundles in terms of classes, you could have them in terms of properties. Of course, if there is a class file, by default it will, the first priority will be, if there is a class file as well as properties file, then by default the first priority always goes to the class file. So, it will load from the class, otherwise if it is not available, it would load from the properties file. Now, this thing could also be used in our web applications. So, you fine, and so one thing is, yes, you can use this in your web application. So, all these properties file, they can be kept in the classes folder, fine, and that is how you can then be using them. Okay. So, that is one aspect. Okay. And then just one a few points here, like we have this package, we have this class called resource bundle, fine, and we saw Locale class, which was very case fine, it was Locale, it has its own Locale sensitivity. Same way, we have lot many other things. There is one package called java.text package, and there we have lot of classes which will help you in internationalization. We have classes like simple date, we have date format, we have okay. So, so we have this package called java.text package, where we have all so many Locale sensitive classes, fine, they help you. For example, fine, we have the classes like the simple date format, the date format class, we have the classes for number format, fine, message format. These are some useful classes. So, it would be good if you could explore those also, fine. So, they are very much useful, and of course, very commonly we use this method, we use the println method, but there is also a printf method, fine. Even the printf method also can take Locale as a parameter. So, when you say printf, you do a formatting and then comma, and you can pass your Locale object. For example, what you could try is, you could create a Locale object using Hindi India for HIIN, okay, and use it as a parameter while you format. So, when you format, and if you have %2d or something, or you are formatting a date or anything, the output which will come out will be in Hindi in that case, fine. There is support, limited support for Indian languages in case of printf and the format methods, that is quite limited, very limited support, but Hindi to some extent has been supported. This slight with Hindi, there is one more thing, they do not have a support when you just create using only HI. You need to say HI and IN both, okay. Only then it the support which is available in the JDK, that is available only for HIIN and not even for HI. Anyway, there are options of developing support for other languages if you like, and you can add that, fine. So, that is other mechanism anyway. So, fine, that is for this particular that is for this particular module, fine, and so fine, thank you, fine, thank you, fine, thank you, fine, thank you, fine.